In this video, we're going to be talking about John Cassavetes' first feature film, Shadows, which is about an interracial relationships and friendships in the late 1950s. We're Coffee with Aliens at the Movies, a film education and review channel. I'm Robert Bellissimo. I'm an actor and acting teacher.
I'm Steve Chambers. I'm a writer and an actor.
And if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to our channel by clicking on the subscribe button in the description box below. What makes this an independent film that people need to see?
We'll get into what the film's about and what it looks like and why it is just, I truly do feel it's a good film. But I think Shadows specifically is more important, or at least just as important, for how it got made and why it got made. It came out of improvisation. It came out of crowdfunding. A lot of the stuff that people use today to make a film on their phone.
Right.
This was wildly unheard of in '57. And I think that's why it's important. The first independent film that people took note of, anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
Giving Cassavetes the title of, granddaddy of all American independent cinema.
Yeah, because there had been independent films made in America beforehand, but they were really part of a very small niche market, a very art film market. They didn't get wide distribution. And this was the first film that really had an impact. And it wasn't really until actually it went to England that it had the success. The first time Hollywood took notice of an independent film, and as a result of that, inspired so many people to start working in this way, which was what John said, which was pick up the camera, go out and shoot it. And if you don't know what you're doing, figure it out as you go along. And that's what they did. I mean, John wasn't a writer. He was an actor on TV and film. And it started off as an experiment, really just to find a way to be free on camera without the restrictions of marks. And then it evolved into Shadows out of his acting class with his students, because he was also a teacher, for anyone who doesn't know that. But I think so much is owed to him now. As you said, crowdfunding, everyone does that now, shooting things on their phone. It's so accessible. But back then, John went on a radio show and asked people to send in $1, and all of this money came in, and it got them enough to get going. But it had such an impact, of course, on Scorsese and Mike Lee and so many people who then started to think that they can do this, 10 years later, 5 years later. And I think without it, there would have been a lot of work that maybe wouldn't have even happened,
I agree.
So it's pretty remarkable in that sense.
But it's also like, for pure filmic, like, I don't know if I call it entertainment, but holy shit. It's like, it's so tense.
Oh,
it's
actually, I've seen it so many times, and I watched it again last night, and that scene really, you can feel the tension between them when Huey's just saying, gently trying to get him to leave, and how he's trying to get through to him, and it's again really two actors working off each other so beautifully. John just frames it, it's just a static
it's
shot.
just a still shot.
That's something to do, right? Like
they
trying
have
to get him
clear
to
goals.
leave, and he's trying to get him to make she's trying to make up with them, right? So it's
like an acting school scene.
It's just acting at its best when you're really committed to what you're doing. And I thought, wow, that's like a scene they should fucking show in acting schools.
This is what I mean.
Make sure you know what you're doing.
There's no hidden agenda. It is that exactly. Like it's here's the conflict, and then Layla is just there in the middle of it. And like you said, John just shot it.
I love that he did there, John, and he's done this in so many films, Minnie and Mouskowitz, as we've discussed already, and it's partly playing with what the audience thinks these characters are like, or also just making people complex. Because up until this point, everything you see of Tony is a charming, sweet, romantic kind of guy. He's very loving towards Lelia, even when she's upset. after she loses her virginity because it wasn't what she expected, and you know, I mean, when have you seen that in a movie? How could it have been so awful? Every time you see a sex scene, even to this day, it's always usually hot or meant to be hot, and this is like, it's the end of it. And of course, yeah, losing your virginity is not hot sex, you know. He was trying to calm her down and be sweet to her and take her home. So everything you think about him at this point is that he's a kind guy. And then as soon as he meets the brother, it's just a cut to his reaction. So then the audience and the other characters are discovering at the same time, oh, this guy doesn't like that he's now finding out she's half black. Not only that, the audience doesn't discover it until that point, because the only time you see Lelia and Hugh together are at the train station when he's going to play a gig. But you get the sense that it's a sister brother thing, but you don't know for sure. They could be cousins, they could be friends, they could even be girlfriend, boyfriend. You know, he's just saying, hey, you know, make sure you take a cab home because there's a lot of creeps out there. Someone might try to attack you. So and I love, you know, I think in most narratives they often you can get ahead of movies, and you would have already known that they were brother and sister. You would have already known that this guy was a little shady or a racist or something along those lines. But at that moment, the audience and the characters discover all of that together. I'm even tempted to say maybe that's the best thing he did in a way. It says,
yeah, I could see that.
It's all in the reactions, and even when you look at Rupert, his manager, Hugh's manager, and they cut to everyone's face, and they know that fucking reaction, right? They're black, they know what that reaction means, right? And you can see they look back at it, and the audience knows too, right? It's like, it's all in the eyes. Nothing is said. Nothing is said about racism in this movie except once. So it's fucking brilliant. I love that moment. It's genius.
Just to touch on the structure and how it plays out. And again, there is a story of things happen. It's just maybe a little less conventional than, your mainstream movie. But not in some experimental weirdo way. It just sort of plays out more like a slice of life. Like you come in over the opening credits to like action, right? Like it's going on. You're a fly on the wall. And that's basically how the whole film plays out. Yeah, you're just the camera. You are the camera. You're an eye, and you're fluttering around, and you're watching moments. Really, that's it. You're watching moments. So it makes sense that this was born out of acting at school. It's moments, it's scenes that, you know, play out quickly, and there's a lot of frenetic energy, and I mean that in the best way, and then it plays out and it's over, and you just witnessed, you know, like 2 weeks or whatever in these people's lives in New York City. And I love, and you really feel that there was no permits obtained, that it was shot in the streets of New York. Like you're there. And it's really, really, really neat. And again, there's some films that are deemed important for whatever they brought to cinema at the time. This, I think, still, it's still a thing. I think it still works.
Well, it's so
a really
universal.
Neat movie.
Really explores their relationships and what they face. And it's not purely about racism, what they experience, but obviously that's there. But they actually all have their individual lives, and you really get to see that and what they're struggling with and what they're exploring. And it's really, in a lot of ways, it's a coming of age story. It's really about people in their 20s.
That's right.
And anyone who has ever tried to fit in somewhere else, anyone who thinks that they have to be further along in life, anyone who's struggling to make it as a musician or anything else in the arts, anyone who's just clowning around with their friends and picking up women and have no kind of vision or can't fit in anywhere, or are lost and confused, that's your 20s. That's your 20s, man. And, you know, and I think it has all of that. And you see Lelia, you know, she's trying to be literary, and she's going out with that other guy who's this literary sophisticated, and she goes to his party, and he criticizes her writing. So she's trying to move away from, her other brother, Benny. He's like this cool kind of hipster, and he's anti-intellectual, and his friends are laughing, and they go to the museum, and you see their insecurities, right? In the sense they get into that argument. Oh, I went to college, and these professors, they're trying to teach me about art. You know why? Only because they failed at it themselves in life. They've got nothing to teach me. And John is not judging anyone. You never get the impression that, this guy's wrong. He's just saying this is what it is. And you almost go with them. Like, yeah, fuck those professors. Because of the conviction.
Sure.
Because of the conviction. And one guy's more into art, and you see Benny is kind of mocking the statues because he can't take it quite so seriously because he doesn't understand it. And hey, I mean, fuck, go down the road right now. You're going to see people like that. You're outside. You're going to see kids walking around, wandering and not knowing. You're going to see young women and young guys trying to be sophisticated, trying to improve themselves, having a hard time with it, even putting on a lot of airs and putting someone else down for not being that way. You're going to see musicians busking downtown Toronto and New York, trying to make a break as a musician. I mean, fuck, this is incredible. I mean, so it's really just their relationships. And obviously it also plays into the fact that they're half black and half white, and how that they never know what people think of them when they find out that they're half black or half white, and how that leads to them not fitting in anywhere in their struggles. I think the only real mysterious character, more so, I think the other ones are pretty clear of what they want, what they're after. But I think Benny is the guy that when he finds out that Lelia is upset, and this is because of what happened with her boyfriend Tony, when he's clearly a racist, and then Hugh is, he makes light of it. Just a little problem with the races, and John doesn't cut to Benny's reaction. So you don't really know what he thinks of that. But then in the next party, at the party scene, he's sitting there alone, and he gets into a fight with that woman. He hits her. And then the next scene, he's fighting with his brother. So it makes you wonder, now, is it because just finding out about another racist situation sets him off? You don't know. It's up to you. And John, that's classic Cassavetes, disclosing close-ups, disclosing reaction. So then because I think in most cases they would have shown the guy being like, motherfucker, that fucking idiot, fucking racist. Then you would have known what his problem was in the scenes. But you have to do a little more work and get more involved in that case to figure out what's his problem, And then of course in the end, when they get into that fight, and then he says, hey, maybe it sort of gets, the lesson gets beat into him that he has to start to grow up, right? And that's optimistic. And everyone is everything, nothing closes up neat and tidy, but there's optimism. And you see Lelia with that, she goes out with that other guy, and he's a little more traditional and conservative. Hey, when a man asks a woman to do something, where I'm from, the woman listens. She goes, you know what? You can't tell me what to do. But then they start to then get along, there's hope. Oh, well, maybe that's a relationship that will go somewhere. You get the impression that he'll accept her, that he'll learn from her. And then of course with Rupert, the frustrated manager, and Hugh, I love that scene. That's classic Cassavetes too, like, we can't get anywhere, and what's the best I've ever done for you? And he's like, hey man, do you believe in me? Because you're the greatest manager in the world, and it's what we give each other. And that's classic Cassavetes. It's not about the financial, commercial success. It's about us and what we're doing together creatively all these years.
You see that's a theme of John's, definitely, is the human heart.
That's exactly. Well said. That's classic Cassavetes. That scene right there that's John. When Hugh says that's John.
Yeah.
It's not that he didn't at the same time want recognition and success, of course, but I think that was always secondary to his passion and his need to tell film. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to our channel by clicking on our Coffee with Aliens at the Movies logo on the top right of your screen, and that will give you instant subscription. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.